Xnil here, and Tower of Fantasy is coming out in 5 days. So you're probably wondering, is it just a Genshin Impact ripoff? Or does it actually have its own merits? Does it do things differently and innovate in some aspects of the game? Is it worth your time? We're gonna talk about the major features of Tower of Fantasy and how it differentiates itself from Genshin Impact. From the multiplayer aspect, the gacha system, and pity mechanics. Is it free to play friendly or is it pay to win? All of that we'll talk about in this video. Now before you go mouthing in the comment section, why are you even comparing the two? It's two different games, dude. I think it's perfectly fine to compare these two games. They are both very similar and appeal to the same type of audience. The people who like anime, open world, action RPG, exploration, also, gacha. What I think is not fine is becoming toxic on social media and saying one game is trash compared to the other, or one game will never beat the other. Bro, both games can coexist. It's fine. You can play both games and enjoy both games. There's no exclusivity clause. Bro, these games are not feeding your families, alright? Chill. It's just entertainment. It's not that deep, alright? Let's talk about the multiplayer and PvP aspect of Tower of Fantasy. So Tower of Fantasy is a shared open world RPG, meaning you'll be able to run into players out in the open world. There's going to be world bosses and raids and PvP. Now you might not like PvP, some people just want to enjoy PvE, and that's fine, you can ignore the PvP. But for those who like PvP, there is the arena system where you can duel with other players. There is no open world PK, so that's good news for people who don't like these types of mechanics in other MMORPGs. And the China version of the game already just came out with the Battle Royale mode, which I think sounds exciting. We'll see. Now, Genshin is mostly a single player experience. It does have co-op features, but you don't really want to do co-op outside of the times when you're a noob and you need help from somebody who is a veteran. With Tower Fantasy, we get to experience a similar experience and scratch that Genshin itch, but we do get to play together, which I think is really fun. Now let's talk about characters. In Tower Fantasy, you can actually create your own character. In Genshin Impact, you get to choose between two presets, Aether and Lumine, and that's it. Now since this is a gacha game, we have to talk about the other characters that you will be able to get from the game. In Genshin Impact, when you pull for characters, these characters dictate your playstyle. In Tower Fantasy, it works a bit differently, but essentially it's the same. So in Tower Fantasy, you pull for weapons, but these weapons come with a character skin. Now these weapons dictate your gameplay. So if you, for example, pull the Scythe from King, then you'll be able to use that weapon in game and play as his playstyle. But it doesn't mean that you have to equip the King character skin. If you want to walk around in the open world as King, then you can do that. You can equip the King skin. But you can also choose not to equip any of the character skins that you got and just choose to run around in the world with your created character. So again, you pull for weapons, and these weapons come with character skins, which are completely optional, completely cosmetic. You don't have to wear them or use them when using the weapon. Let's talk about one of the main reasons why you would play any of these games, and that is combat. In Genshin Impact, you switch between 4 characters. In Tower Fantasy, you switch between 3 weapons. As we have established before, characters in Genshin Impact dictate the gameplay, and weapons in Tower Fantasy dictate the gameplay. So essentially, these are the same things. Genshin Impact does have an advantage in that you have 4 switching options, while in Tower Fantasy, you only have 3 switching options. However, the amount of things you can do with one weapon in Tower Fantasy far outnumbers the amount of things you can do with one character in Genshin Impact. In Tower Fantasy, you have normal attacks, charge attacks, dash attacks, aerial attacks, plunge attack, weapon skill, weapon burst or switch skill, and relics that are not weapon specific but can be mixed into the combat. These are special gadgets which do certain things like generate a black hole or grapple the enemy or make you fly high into the sky, and then you can do your aerial attacks or range attacks down into the ground. There's also a dodge mechanic where if you time it right, enemies will be slowed down. But overall, I think Tower Fantasy gives you more to think about, more things to engage your brain while doing combat, and more freedom to express yourself in the type of playstyle that you want to do. Now, this is a gacha game, so we gotta talk about the gacha and the pity system. I think you'll be very pleased with what you're about to hear. In Genshin Impact, there is a 90 hard pity. In Tower Fantasy, there is an 80 hard pity. In Genshin Impact, if you get a 5-star before you reach your pity, the pity counter resets back to 0. In Tower Fantasy, if you get an SSR before you hit the 80 hard pity, the counter does not reset. Meaning, on the way to your 80 pull pity, you could get 1 SSR, maybe 2 SSRs if you're lucky, and still get that guaranteed SSR on the 80th pull, which I think is great. There's also, I believe, a first time 30 pull pity and guarantees you an SSR in the China version. We'll have to wait and see if the global version has this as well. Now, when it comes to limited banners, in Genshin Impact, you have a 50-50 chance of getting the rate up character. And then if you don't get the rate up character on your 5-star pull, you will be guaranteed that rate up character on your next 5-star. In Tower Fantasy, once you hit that 80 pull hard pity in the limited banner, it is always 50-50 if you're gonna get the rate up character. But don't worry, because every pull you do in a banner, you get this special token. And this special token, once you get 120 of them, you can buy that limited character or weapon outright. So if you don't get that rate up character / weapon on your 80 hard pity, just do 40 more pulls and then you'll have 120 tokens to buy the character / weapon from the shop outright. You can also buy duplicates in the same manner. Once you have unlocked a specific weapon, you can just buy duplicates of this weapon from the shop using tokens that you get from pulling. So I think that's amazing. It's not super whale heavy when it comes to maxing out a specific weapon, because you do need 6 more duplicates here, just like you need 6 more constellations in Genshin Impact. And I should also mention that the limited banner pity count does carry over to the next limited banner. To be honest, the gacha system in Tower Fantasy is quite complicated and may be confusing to new players, so I will be doing a more in-depth gacha dedicated video for Tower Fantasy when the game comes out. So make sure you follow or subscribe and turn on notifications if you don't want to miss out on those guide videos. Now let's address something that a lot of players will want to know about before spending any time on this game, and that is it F2P friendly? First, we have to define what F2P friendly is, because Genshin Impact, even though pulling costs so much money in that game, trying to get a single character costs way too much money, it's absurd. I would still call it F2P friendly because the game is very easy. You can complete all of the content in the game with just 4-star characters. You don't need C6, 5 stars, Meta, Zhongli, Ganyu, whatever. So in that regard, even though it will be very hard for you to get all the characters that you want, it is still F2P friendly just because you can clear all the content. Now in Tower Fantasy, I'm not sure how difficult the content is going to be because I did play in the beta, but I did not get to play that much to get into the deepest, hardest endgame content. But when it comes to pulling for weapons, the game does give you a lot of resources just by exploring the world. Just going out and exploring the maps, doing these different collectibles around the map will give you resources to pull for weapons. There's also dailies that give you enough resources to do 4 pulls per day. Bro, Genshin doesn't even give you enough for 1 pull per day, which I think is absurd. So then, is it pay to win? Well, obviously all gacha games are pay to win. That's literally the business model. But for me, I'm okay with the game being pay to win as long as the F2P experience is still enjoyable. So is it enjoyable as an F2P? Well, let's talk about PvE and PvP. PvE in Tower Fantasy is completely fine even if other people are whaling. There's no ranking system where the whales get more drops than you, and it's actually more beneficial if whales do help you out because things finish easier. For PvP, however, there is some advantage to people who pay a lot. Now in the arena, the stats are balanced, so all the weapons that you have will be 6 stars and your enemies will also have 6 stars on all the weapons. Stats are balanced. However, the whales will have an easier time getting all of the best weapons that are great for arena. They will also have an easier time collecting the matrices, which are kind of like the artifacts in Tower Fantasy, because there are also limited time matrices. So think of limited time artifacts in Genshin Impact. If you're not whaling, you might be missing out on those limited time matrices, and they might be really strong and you won't be able to use them because you don't have enough currency to pull for those limited time matrices. So there is an issue in that. However, I believe that if you are a very skillful player, if you know your timing, your cooldowns, your positioning, you can definitely perform well in the arena. So I cannot wait to be playing this game with you guys, my community, the X fam. If you guys are new here, we have a very active community of anime lovers and anime gamers in our Discord, whether it's Genshin Impact or Tower Fantasy or Wuthering Waves, which is, I don't know when that's coming out, but we're looking forward to that as well. If you guys are one of those people, you'll have a great time in our Discord server. That's discord.gg/xfam. I'll also be streaming Tower Fantasy live on fb.gg/xnoph. So join me and hang out, and I'll see you around.